Eisenhower, is he the guy who will help lead our effort for the interstate highway system? Well, that's what my grandpa and grandpa did. What are we going to do? Just ride on their stuff and patch it here and there? We need to have a major investment. I think a national infrastructure bank bill could help do it. And I also support the president's barrel tax. I think that makes a lot of sense too. And so, you know, I'll say that I also have an issue regarding transportation, which I really would like you all to share and think about. Now, we live in America, and for most people, and I need some audience participation here, if I could ask you for one word which kind of captured what our country means at its best, what would that one word be for you? Now, y'all got to help me out. Give me a word.
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Come on.
Freedom.
Freedom. That's another good one. How about possibility? Nobody's guaranteeing you anything, but the chance. So opportunity is a good word, but he's the only one who gave me a word, so I need y'all to help out a little bit more. Something like that. The idea that if you are a mom with 3 kids, maybe you're working as a cleaner in the hospital, that mom can believe her son's going to be a doctor. This is a wonderful thing about our country. Now this is something that whether you are black or white or Latino or Asian or Muslim, Christian, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, or from the rural areas or the urban, we all have this thing where we think that, hey man, it can happen here if it's going to happen anywhere. Am I wrong about that? Now that can just be a dream that we like to say, or it can be real. How is it real? It's real if we make the investments. My dad is a psychiatrist. He's a physician. His dad could not read more than putting a mark on a piece of paper. Because in the 1920s, they didn't let too many African Americans go to school. Like my grandfather couldn't go, just because of segregation. But my father could go. Why? The GI Bill. He went to the military, and he got in the GI Bill, and he made a way. Nobody gave him the degrees that he earned. He earned them, but the society made a chance for him to get there. What I'm saying is that the roads and the bridges and the transit that we could build are also like a GI Bill. They're a literal pathway to success. Because look, if you're living in North Minneapolis, where unemployment is really high, and you can get on a transit line to go to where they're going to pay you $15, $16, $17 an hour, that could change your family's life. That could change your family's life. And we ought to do it if we can. We ought to do it affordably. We ought to do it in a fair way. We ought to do it the best we can. But we should do it. And I'm not going to sweat the details. I'm sweating the outcome. Right? So there was a recent Harvard study that found that commute time is the single strongest factor in determining how likely a family is to escape poverty and join the middle class. Y'all remember that story about that guy in Detroit who was walking 10 miles to work and 10 miles back? Now, you can't tell me that guy's lazy. But I can tell you that Detroit didn't have an adequate transportation system that could help him not spend 2 hours walking one way and the other. Now, that's where you come in. This is why we got to build this stuff. This is not just a matter of the stuff on the surface. It's deeper than that. It's a matter of opportunity for our nation. So I'm done with my sermon this morning. I just want to say I completely respect everything you do. I appreciate what you do. Your presence here is really important. And let me just say that it's one thing for you to write a letter or send an email or to grab us in the district. But when you're nose to nose, chop to chop, right here in Washington, that leaves an impression that no member of Congress is going to forget. So just want to say thank you for that. Okay? Be well, guys.
Okay, and our next member, who's up to bat, I guess, is Representative Eric Paulsen from the 3rd Congressional District. He's also a former state legislator and has been a great supporter of transportation. So please join me in welcoming Representative Paulsen.
Well, real quick, let me just also thank everyone for being here. And this is great you have a chance to hear from everyone in the delegation. And I'll just say, number one, you should just know that all of us in the delegation do get together periodically. In fact, I try to organize these quarterly lunches to get together. And we always had some interesting conversations when we used to have Michelle Bachmann and Al Franken in that same room. But we focus on priorities, right? We get to share our own individual priorities, and we work common on issues like invasive species and a number of other different areas. And it's just part of being Minnesotan, I think. So your presence here, I think being here today with Margaret's leadership of the Transportation Alliance, I so much appreciate folks who stay in touch on issues that I don't have normal conversations with on my committee. So, you know, Commissioner Luchnik, right, who comes out and talks about rail issues, right, and just has a constant resource and communication with our office really helps. And so it's the engineers, it's the companies that you are a part of that are here, it's labor. When you're all part of this coalition out here talking about transportation, it really helps. And I think it really helped break the logjam of these short-term extensions we were doing over and over and over for the last decade, right? Gives no certainty, gives no predictability for planning when you want to have a workforce that's ready to be out there for building the next project. And thankfully we got a long-term highway project, transportation bill passed. You know, the downside is it's not based on user fees, right? We kind of cobbled together a bunch of funding mechanisms to put it together. And I mean, from my standpoint, I've worked with Tim Walls on this in the past, I think we should do more long-term thinking in the area of energy royalties and dedication of those resources into transportation infrastructure. But the thing is, you got to start doing it now. You can't wait till this authorization expires and expect that that's going to start up again, because that won't happen. And so we have such a reputation of sort of this short-term planning or fix rather than long-term planning. But your presence here makes a huge difference. And I'll tell you, too, that some of the efforts that many of you have contacted me about having communications with our Department of Transportation, with the Corridors program, for instance, and sending specific letters on, Highway 212, the Brockton interchange. Those are important projects in my district alone. But I think more or less it's important to look at what's good for the state as a whole. You know, Keith talked about transit projects and road projects, and I think that our delegation works pretty much hand in hand, knowing that those important facts are there. So local units of government, and you're from all over, right? Olmsted County, Carver County, just continue to weigh in, just share your thoughts, and your being here makes a big difference. It really does. Obviously, you can reach out anytime when we're back in Minnesota, but the fact that you take the time to come in as part of the annual Fly-In, it does help. And if nothing else, having you as a resource is something that myself or Helena, my staff, really, really appreciate. So with that, I just want to thank you. I'm not going to go on and on because you got everyone kind of rolling through here today. But transportation is a key critical issue. If nothing else, it's one of the key central components of what government should be providing, right? Safety and then transportation, because transportation is about helping the economy, which Keith talked about a little bit. And it's also about safety. It's about safety, and none of us like to read about tragedies that occur. There was another accident recently where a couple of kids were thrown out of a car and killed, and sometimes those are directly related to a lack of appropriate infrastructure. And so we've got opportunities to address it and fix it for the long term and pay attention to it. And it does drive the economy. So thanks for being here. Always continue to stay in touch. I have an open door on a regular basis, as you well know. And I look forward to seeing, I think, the group that's coming in a little bit later today when you swing in. So thanks for being out here. And with that, we'll just turn it back over to you guys. I got to run at my 9 o'clock. So have a great day while you're out here. Appreciate it. We'll be at the reception tonight. We'll swing in. All right? Sounds
good. Okay, so we have a few more members coming. So we can just kind of hang out a little bit, have some more coffee, and we'll wait for the next person to show up. Thanks.
Vance, tell us a story.
No, I've been here
That was great.
Okay, so our next member is from Congressional District 8, and is the one member of the delegation on Transportation and Infrastructure Committee in the House. So we're really pleased to have with us Congressman Rick Nolan, who's been a huge champion for transportation, and we really appreciate his support, and hopefully he can give us some insight into what's happening with transportation funding. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Margaret, and thank all of you. Few people have been as good a champion as Margaret Donahue, and when I first got to meet Margaret, I was not inclined to like her.
You were jealous of her hair.
No, no. Her namesake, Mary Donahue, stood me up at our senior prom. So, you know, there's some things you just never forget. But Margaret, you've done a wonderful job. Bringing all of our forces together, and it is so important that you show up for this event, you know, every year and throughout the year, because I don't know if you've thought about it, but like everything in life is affected by politics. You know, just get over it if you don't like it. You know, I mean, the time of day is a political decision. You know, the chemicals in the shampoo this morning are partly a political decision. The fabric, you know, in your clothing, you know, it's a political decision. The ingredients in your fillings, you know, they're political decisions. You know, the air we're breathing, they're political decisions. So my theory about all this is, you know, instead of just having these age-old arguments about whether you have big government or little, let's make sure whatever it does or doesn't do is something good for us, okay? And the reason why it's so important for you to come to town is because everybody else does. I mean, everybody does. Everybody that realizes the impact that government, positive or negative, can have on their lives, they come to town. And they have associations. And they retain people who keep them informed about what's happening so that they can have like a daily presence. And it's so important for you to come to town, because if you don't, well, guess what? Only one of two things can happen. One is people know you exist, and or one is they don't know you exist, and then the other one is they know you exist and think you don't care. So you can't let that happen, and that's why you have to come to town and lobby and inform and educate the members of your delegation, and hopefully if everybody's doing that all around the country, why things kind of come together and good things happen. So I applaud you for taking the time out of your life and coming here. The other thing, I know you didn't come to hear this, and I'll be brief on it, but I feel compelled to remind people that everything we do here is choices, okay? We have to make choices. And people come in and say, you know, we want more money for transportation, Mr. Nolan. And I say, yep, so do I. And we need more money for education. And I say, yep, so do I. And could you spend a little more money finding a cure for cancer? And I say, yep, so do I. And we have to make these choices. We have to make these choices. Now, in that case, I'm for every one of those, unapologetically. But I tell you some of the other choices we have to make. And I tell you about it because I just want you to be mindful of it. We spent $3 trillion in Iraq. I listened to a general the other night, and he said, we've been bombing Iraq all my adult life, 25 years. We spent $3 trillion. Well, guess what? For one of those trillion, we could have graduated every kid in America from college debt-free. That's right. We're making choices. For another one of those trillion, we could have rebuilt America's transportation system, put 13 million people to work. And for another one, let's we could have had some fun. Let's throw some money at cancer. Hell, let's give everybody a tax break. Instead, we still have a $2 trillion obligation. That's just from one of the wars. We have a $2 trillion going taking care of the veterans, the brave men and women who served. But you know, they lost legs, they lost arms, nerve damage, brain damage. post-traumatic stress syndrome. So we got a $2 trillion bill going forward there. Now, someone said, well, you know, we need to go in there and straighten that out. Who wouldn't want to straighten that mess out? You know, but you remember the old serenity prayer, you know, change the things I can, have the patience to accept the things I can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I tell people, look, there are all kinds of things in life you would like to do, but you simply can't afford. And if you look at it and you say, well, it's even counterproductive, then you don't want to do it. So we're the wealthiest nation in the world. The money is there, but we have to make these choices. So when it comes up in your coffee party or coffee after church or that little family gathering, don't be afraid to say, you know, maybe we should think about this a little bit, okay? So, but I want to talk about transportation. As Margaret said, I'm the only member on the Transportation Committee. We recently passed the so-called FAST Act, you know, a 5-year transportation bill. I don't know how you get around to calling a, you know, bill that took 8 years to pass the FAST Act, but and I certainly hope the Minnesota legislature can do a little better job than we did. But, and I must tell you, I have to applaud Paul Ryan. You know, one of the reasons that Mr. Boehner got in trouble was because of the fact that he wasn't allowing the committees to work their will. And all the decisions were being made in the Speaker's office. And that was part of his demise. And I know he resigned gracefully, but it was either that or get thrown out ungracefully. And Ryan said he wanted to reestablish what we call regular order. And that's an important matter too. Process matters. Process counts. I served back in the 70s, and regular order ruled the day. Everything came up through the subcommittee, the full committee, the full House, open rules. If you had a good idea, you got a chance to offer it. You got a chance to argue it and have a vote on it. And even if you lost, you felt good about it because at least you had your day to argue it. And that's how we found common ground. That's how people come together. And many of us were arguing. We got bipartisan agreement for a good transportation bill, but let us do our work. So shortly after Ryan took over, ranking member DeFazio and I had a little visit with Paul Ryan on the floor of the House and said, you know, Mr. Speaker, you talked about regular order, and we're getting tired of kicking this damn can down the road. You know, people can't plan their budgets, businesses can't plan their future. You know, when you keep coming up with this 2- and 3-month extensions. And Ryan, and so, you know, we're going to mobilize an effort to vote against the transportation bill and kill the damn thing until you guys let the committee do its work. Can you imagine what it must have been like for Bill Schuster, you know, your chairman of the committee, and your speaker won't let your committee write a bill? So Ryan said, you know, if you guys will go along with me just one more time, you know, because we can't do it now, I promise you, we'll let the committee write a bill. And he was a man of his word. And he let the committee write a bill. And finally, after 8 years, we got a 5-year transportation bill. And thanks to Mr. Ryan, but thanks to, you know, for allowing the process to work. I mean, we came together, Republicans, Democrats, you know, we got things that divide us, but we got a lot more things that, you know, bring us together. And process counts, it matters. If everybody's across the street dialing for dollars, if you're not allowing the committees to sit down and talk about the issues of our time, it can't happen. It can't happen. So we got a transportation bill. And it's not a bad bill. I mean, we got an additional $3.4 billion for Minnesota road and bridge projects, you know, coming up. We got another over the next 5 years, $656 million for transit projects. We got money to start rebuilding some of these, some cases, 100-year-old wooden bridges, you know, that are falling down. We got some money in there for the, you know, hopefully the NLX and the North Star and the Southwest Corridor and these many other good projects. And I like to remind people, Minnesota gets back 65 cents out of every dollar that we send to Washington. And there's some states that are getting back $4 and $5 for every dollar they send to Washington. So I'm on kind of a shameless personal mission to even the score. So, and we're having some success. Over and above these numbers that I just gave you, there are grants that are available for worthy projects. And I will personally and shamelessly weigh in on behalf of projects for Minnesota. And I had a Congressional Research Service look and see what we did in the last session. We were able to bring an additional like about $470 million just into the 8th district. That's over and above the normal formulations. Why? Well, there are always more worthy projects and there's money to go around. So, you know, as Mick Jagger said, you don't always get what you ask for, but you're sure as hell not going to get what you don't ask for. So I can be pretty shameless. And when you know, whether it be $10 million for a new dock at the harbors in Duluth, or $20 million for our airport in Duluth, or, you know, airports, roads, housing projects. I'm an old business guy. I spent 32 years in business. I've got to go to work every day and fix something, or I don't feel like it was a good day. So we don't have earmarks. But guess what? Somebody's got to mark where the heck the money's going to go. And it's the government bureaucrats. Well, hell, it costs me $20 million every 2 years to be here. I'm not going to sit back and let them make all those decisions on their own. So I weigh in on them, and they listen to you. You know, I can go and say, look, I support your mission. I support your authorization. You know, help me help you, will you? And here's some projects I'd like to see funded. They've been pretty good. So if I can help any of you with their projects, count me in on that. And we were able to get a lot of, you know, good little amendments on the surface transportation bill. I got one that just got the old, got the logging trucks off of Main Street in Superior. Something they've been trying to do for 20 years. How do I know about that? Well, I own a sawmill and a pallet factory. And anybody that's ever driven a big truck knows there's a difference between a sedan with an automatic transmission and a big heavy truck with a heavy-duty clutch. And, you know, having to clutch that monster, you know, you grab onto the wheels and you have to press her down, and having to stop every other block for a stop sign and all the danger, and 500 trucks going up and down Main Street when there's a nice alternative, you know, going by there. The truckers love it. Holy cow. You know, it takes a couple hours off their day, which means, you know, money, profits. And not just to mention the ease of getting on there and saying, ah, you know, I can just put her in cruise and get around the city. So, small thing, but, you know, important. Important to loggers, important to people in my business and in my industry. And I could go on at great length about numerous other things, giving the state some new tools to work with drunken driving and other projects. We passed a water resources development bill. One of the important things we did there is the harbor maintenance tax is used to make sure the harbors are capable of handling all the latest new developments in shipping and in industry. But not everything that's bipartisan is necessarily good. Democratic and Republican presidents have been stealing from that fund and using it to balance the budget. Well, it's the people in the water transportation business who are being taxed, and being taxed for the purpose of keeping our transportation system, in this case the Great Lakes, you know, flowing effectively and efficiently. And then the presidents are taking it and using it for balancing the budget. Well, we got through an amendment to put a stop to that. So that money that was set aside for that purpose is going to be used for that purpose. We just recently got through another little amendment to require the Army Corps of Engineers to consider nature-based solutions to water flow problems in situations. They don't have to do that, But look at it. For several reasons. One, in terms of conservation, it can be a much better solution many times, and it's far less costly. So just say, consider it. Consider it. You know, a new dike, you know, in this town is not necessarily the best solution, because it just creates more money to flood the next town. You know, so you just consider that. So you know that's important. I put some pressure recently on the TSA and got them to transfer another $34 million into the airport inspection system. And people wait in some cases 2 and 3 hours. Well, guess what happened? You know, they were trying to save money, God bless them, but they cut the personnel at TCA by 11–12%. Meanwhile, the number of people flying increased by 10–12%, and voila, you know, long lines. So, you know, that was a nice little fix that we made there. We got an FAA authorization that's expiring here on July 15th, and the thing that's holding it up is Brother Schuster's interest in privatizing the air traffic controller system, and virtually everybody, you know, on Mother Earth is against that. He got it through on the House bill just by the sheer virtue of the respect that his colleagues had for them. But you know, most of us are of the old school that if something's not broken, don't fix it. There are enough things around that are broken that we can work on and fix without having to fix things that aren't broken. So transportation, it's just so fundamental to our economic well-being, to our success as an economy. Having owned an export trading company and sold American goods all over the world, people ask me what I sold, and I tell them everything except for guns and drugs, which is where all the real money was. But I managed to make a good living at it. And I tell you, I've been to some countries where they don't have roads and they don't have taxes, and trust me, you don't want to live there. If you doubt me, why, go see how you like Zaire. Okay, they got a couple of roads there, and but you talk about, you know, wanting to conceal and carry. You damn well better conceal and carry if you're going to try it down one of those roads. So yeah, every society can show where you know, infrastructure has really been the linchpin in creating jobs and facilitating business and creating economic opportunities and economic growth. So you're involved, all of you, in an incredibly vital, essential business and or public service that relates to our well-being as a nation, and our ability to facilitate the flow of goods and commerce, and it is also fundamentally important. And I'll just give you one example, okay? And then I'll let you get on with your work. But Lake Superior's access to the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway is facilitated by the pole lock, not to be confused, the POE lock that enables the ships of the Great Lakes, of Lake Superior, to get into the Great Lakes, okay? That lock, Homeland Security just recently did a study. They found out that that lock is so critical to America's economic well-being, and that's why we have military protection there for that. Because if that lock ceased to work because of obsolescence or because of a military attack, asymmetrical or otherwise, it would throw this country into a Great Depression. It would put 7 million people out of work. Why? Well, that is Lake Superior's access to the Great Lakes. And 13% of the nation's gross national product goes through that lock. And guess what? Most of it comes from Minnesota's Iron Range. It's the iron ore that's going through that lock that's feeding the steel mills in the Great Lakes, and they're supplying the automobile industry and all the heavy industrials of the Great Lakes. So some over the years would argue that, being the representative of the Iron Range, that we're being parochial. No, we're not. Of course it's important for us, but it's critical, it's essential for the nation and its well-being. Why? Because in addition to having the lot collapse of obsolescence or being attacked by the military, the other way it could be made useless if we shut down our mining and steel industry. It's vital to our national security, vital to our national economy, and vital to our national well-being. So I'm an unapologetic fan of the Polak and the Polish as well. In our transportation bill, I managed to get $1.3 million to do a study, feasibility study to replace and repair. It's 70 years old. We got $10 million to make some repairs, some new gates and some new electrical systems to keep the darn thing working until we can build a new one. And and I think the President's got another $6 million in there for some additional repairs in his budget. So, but these seemingly little projects are so vital, they're so critical, as I said, to our national security, our national economy, our national well-being. Please consider me your champion, and anytime you see a project that's going to help Minnesota, I'm all in, and I'll go to bat with you and go to bat for you, and I want you to consider me as the only member of the Minnesota delegation on that committee. I want you to consider me to be your champion. Thank you all very much. If anybody has a question, I know you got a big agenda. I only have 27 meetings today. Isn't that something?
Yes.
I love it, though.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Got one right away.
Oh, we do.
Just
Yeah.
a comment. Thanks for your work on this dialing back to dialing for dollars.
Well, thank you.
I mean, somebody needs to do this, and appreciate the courage to step up and do it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. If everybody, I served in the 70s. We didn't have call. The Democrats and Republicans both have call centers across the street, and they recommend you spend 20 hours a week over there dialing for dollars and asking people for money. Well, first of all, we never did that in the past. It's kind of unseemly. You're on a committee that has authorization for people's occupations and professions, and giving some money, really. It's so demeaning. But in terms of process, how can the Congress, if we don't have regular order, if the committees aren't meeting, if they aren't considering everything, because everybody's across the street. So it's not just about, electing good people with good intentions. You have to structure the process so it facilitates what they can do, what they want to do. This is such a great nation. Oh my God. And, you bring people here from all the corners and all the different economies and whatnot, and you bring them together, and then you don't let them talk and engage. What are you thinking? So we got to change that. Thank you.
I got a question.
Yeah.
It really doesn't have to do with transportation, but more of your experience here in Washington now and what it was before. At this point, we're seeing such a partisanship, either a far right or a far left. Can you see it melding back in the middle like you used to be back when you were?
Yes, I can. I got to tell you, on a personal level here in the Congress, we get along great. I'm on this Stop Act to prohibit members. Well, I'm on it with David Jolly. He's a Republican. I'm on a bill to reverse Citizens United. My co-sponsor is a Republican from North Carolina, Walter Jones. Forgive me for bragging for a minute. The University of Virginia and Vanderbilt and some others did a study on effectiveness in the Congress, and voila, who do you suppose ended up one of the 10 most effective members of the Congress? A young fella from the Iron Range of Minnesota who was in the minority. So it gets back to that process question. Because I don't go to the call center across the street. I'm busy meeting with my colleagues, and, you know, I'm a dang good congressman, but I've had a Republican partner on everything that I've passed and accomplished. You don't do that by yourself in the minority, I guarantee you. So if they get the process back to work, then the bipartisanship or the nonpartisanship will come together. And you'll have a Congress that goes to work every day just basically fixing things. And, you know, you can argue about, you know, abortion or gay marriage or transgender toilets and, you know, those sort of things if you want. And people got some pretty strongly held internal views on that. And you might not be able to come to agreement on it. But most of the things, you know, we're all come together on. But I spend, listen to this, for me, it's a 7-hour trip, one way. I spend 2 days a week traveling, because we're only here 3 nights a week, about two and a half days. Well, we never did that in the past. We worked Monday through Friday, started every morning in your committees, ended up late on Friday night, and then after about a month you take a week off and you go back home and meet with your constituents. But you could move your family out here. You could get together for barbecues, you know, go to the track, go to a ball game, you know, with your colleagues, get together for a picnic on the weekend. You could live normal lives. I am loving this job for me at this stage of my life, after, you know, many, many years in business and community service and government and politics. But my kids are all grown up. I don't know what a young person does. You know, you can't, no sense moving your family here. You're only here for 3 nights and you got 10 meetings every night. So you'd never see them here. And then you gotta go back to your district on the weekend. So the process will bring people together or it will divide them. And the process has evolved in recent years to a system that divides and runs against what you need to be doing to come together. We've got to change the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
You talked about that we're getting 65 cents on the dollar, and others are getting $4, maybe $5 in return. What do we do so that we get that? You said you're working on it, but what? How can there stuff we can do, or how do we get that we're getting, say, $3 back?
Well, by coming to town and demanding, when you talk to the rest of the delegation, you know, bring it up. And when you've got, you know, worthy projects, you know, in your district, sometimes it's not just the formulas, sometimes it's who's aggressive and who's not, and asking for more money, because like I said, there's always just more worthy projects and there's money to go around. And you know, there are elements here in the Congress that don't believe in funding for transportation. You've perhaps read or heard about what we call devolvement, and that's a strong constituency here in the Congress that thinks the federal government should not be involved in funding transportation. Now that may seem, as I'm saying it, it doesn't seem quite believable, you know, but it's the God's truth, you know. And I will tell you, boys, something about age and experience does give you a perspective on things. Holy mackerel. I was in China right after it first opened up, and they had transportation strictly financed by the locals, okay? So you drive down the road, you know, one of their main highways, and you'd go through a mile or two of cobblestone, and then you go through a mile of mud, and then you go through a mile of asphalt, and then you go through a mile of concrete, and then you go through a mile of gravel, and then you're back in the mud again. And I mean, it's like, wow. You know, even the communists figured that thing out, you know. If we're going to get this economy moving, we got to have a road. You know, and look what Eisenhower did. Holy mackerel. You know, he built that interstate system, one of the greatest things we ever did. Lincoln, you know, he was the one who invested in the Great Lakes and the rivers and all of the water transportation systems. So it's not Democrat or Republican. You know, we can come together. Just let the process bring us together, and we'll get the formulas worked out. And
we'll get the funding distributed more fairly, and we'll continue to build the transportation that's made us a great nation that we are. All right, thanks, everybody.
Okay, so Senator Franken, I believe, is on his way. So if you can all just kind of hang tight. I think he's the last one who will be coming here this morning. Senator Klobuchar is planning to stop by our reception. So again, that'll be at 5 o'clock back here in the same room. So we'll hear from her then. And if you have any questions about your appointments today, please let us know. We have copies of all the appointments. And we, again, really encourage you to meet with the members of the delegation one-on-one and their staff. And if anybody wants information about the hearing this afternoon on the Senate side with Secretary Fox, just let me know.
I rarely go to the doctor. College, yeah, I would use they don't seem to get you know, I've been here since Friday. So I came out Friday. Last night I was here yesterday with Monday, 17th. Stayed